And this is where you saw that data growth, making our data performance grow is what helped us catapult .NET in here. So the thing I want you to know is if you're a .NET developer and you're using ASP.NET Core, you're using one of the fastest web frameworks on the planet. And that's something we care about and we keep working on. So back to the slides. What were the major features? And I'm just going to quickly go through this. We had a bunch of cool features in .NET Core 2.1. One was global tools. This is the ability to actually install command line tools right from NuGet. You can, if you're familiar with NPM, you can do npm install-g that would globally install a tool. Now we have a .NET version of that same thing. So you can write a cross-platform .NET Core console application and install it with a one-line command on any device. We rewrote the socket layer in .NET, which is why you saw some of those performance numbers you saw in those benchmarks. But we didn't just focus on the server, we also focused on the client. We rewrote the HTTP client to be way faster. It's about 10 times faster in .NET Core 2.1. We continue to make .NET Core 2.1 more compatible with existing .NET, so there's a Windows compatibility NuGet package. If you're an EF Core customer, my favorite feature here is we added lazy loading. It's one of the most popular features in EF that our customers are using. It wasn't in Core. Once again, we're feedback driven. We took that feedback, added it to EF Core 2.1. Then in ASP.NET Core, there's been this huge push this year in making all websites HTTPS. And so ASP.NET Core is HTTPS by default. For the first time ever, we've allowed you to take Web UI and actually put it into a library, a NuGet package, so you can share it across multiple applications. And we have this really cool feature called HTTP Client Factory, which I'll do a demo in a second. And we also brought one of our beloved frameworks from the .NET Framework world, SignalR, is now available in Core as well. So let's jump here, and I'll talk about one more thing real quick. SignalR, as an RTM for Core in 2.1, we also know that SignalR, we always have customers call us and say, how do I build a really highly scalable SignalR? Well, we have an Azure service that you can run your SignalR backend in inside of Azure, and you can drag sliders to auto-scale that application, and we do all the heavy lifting for you. What I'm super excited to announce today is on September 24th at Ignite, we're going to GA this service. So let's move on, and let's do a quick demo of .NET Core 2.1. So I mentioned this thing called HTTP Client Factory, and we always talk about it, and it sometimes I think confuses people because it's kind of a hard to see feature, and I'm going to try to dumb it down today and make it really simple for everybody to see. So I've got an application here, and it's got an API, and I'm just using the typical values controller that we give you in a default application. So it's not doing anything crazy. I've got a get method that just returns a value, so it's not very usable. But it's going to highlight the point. So let's take this API and let's start it. So I will just go over here and we'll say start without debugging, and the API is going to boot up and run. Now I've got a simple app, and I'm sure this app is very simple, similar to what you, the customer, is probably doing. And it's got this index HTML, CSHTML, and inside of it, it makes an API call. That away. It makes an API call, so it's not anything crazy, and you have all probably done this, and this is great. I can run this application, and so basically whenever the index page is hit, it makes an API call to that API. And I'm sure your applications do something like this, whether it's a desktop app, a web app, and you see this works great. Now, I'm going to change things a little bit. Let me go back to my API, and I wrote this cool piece of code here. It's called a random failure middleware. And so what it's going to do, it's going to make my app fail randomly. And I want to do that because we know networks go up and down, connections go up and down, and you should make apps resilient to this. So I'm just going to add this middleware, random failure middleware. And if I scroll here, you'll see that all it does is looks to see if a random value is there. It throws an exception sometimes, and sometimes it doesn't throw an exception. So let's restart this app. We'll restart the app with that middleware enabled. And now if I go back to my client app, I assume everybody's going to expect what's going to happen is if I'm back to my client app, it's going to start failing occasionally. you go. And I refresh the page, it fails. So what would you do as a customer? In the past, what you would do is you would go into your index page, and you would probably write some retry logic around this. Now that's great. You write this retry logic everywhere you call an API, or maybe you only harden one API or another API. Or maybe you write a wrapper around HTTP client that does this for you. And so what we've done in 2.1 is we've added the ability for you to set policies. So I can say add, let's go down here, HTTP client. And I can now, what I can do here is I can create a HTTP client factory. And what this means is I can create an HTTP client and give it a bunch of rules. And with those rules, I can define a bunch of stuff that you can do. So look here, add HTTP client, API, and then I say add transit error policy. So I'm saying, hey, I want to have an error policy. And what I do say is, I say policy retry async 6, which basically means if you fail, try again 6 times. Now you can set multiples of these. There's a whole bunch of these that are available. But by setting that line there, I've now got a set of rules that are applied. And then in my code, instead of creating an HTTP client this way, I can go and ask the factory to do that for me. Clients equals factory, create client, oops. I'm going to give it that name that you saw earlier, API, so it will look that up. And then so everywhere in my code, instead of just doing up an HTTP client, now I say factory give me one called this, and those rules are applied to it. So I can now run this code again. And now, even with that API throwing exceptions, this app is not going to crash because complaining that the app is still running. There we go. Now we're going to run it again here. And I can refresh this as many times as I want. It'll never crash because I set that policy. And so this is a great feature. You should be using it in your apps today. Set your policies. Don't write code around all these APIs. And it's part of our work to make microservices better in .NET. So let's move on. And let's talk about 2.2. So just this morning, we shipped preview 2 of .NET Core 2.2. It's available today. You can grab it right now. And let's talk about some of the big highlights or the themes that we have in the 2.2 wave. One of these things is we want to make web APIs easier to build. Every app, whether it's a web app or a mobile app or a desktop app, is probably calling some APIs. We know this is an important area, so we want to make it easier for you to build APIs and to build clients that can call those APIs. You just saw HTTP client work we did in 2.1. We make it easier to call APIs. Microservices. We hear microservices all the time, so there's a bunch of work we're doing to make microservices better in .NET. And we're always continuing performance, whether it's building your applications or running your applications. Those are the big things. So let's go over some of the major features. Multi-tier JIT compilation. This is the ability for us to quickly JIT your application to get running, and then to notice if it's actually hitting the same method a lot of times, maybe we should JIT it again and make a faster version of it. SQL connection with TokenOff. This is support for the first time to actually grab a token to talk to your SQL server from Active Directory. So you don't ever have to have any client credentials that are put in configuration files or anything like that. EF4, one of my first 2 features are my favorite. Cosmos DB. We know that there's non-relational databases out there, and you might want to use the same EF programming model to talk to a relational database or a non-relational database. You can use Azure Cosmos right from EF4 today with 2.2. Spatial attentions. This has been one of the most requested features for EF, which is spatial in this case is types for geographic locations. You want to have a longitude, latitude, because maybe when you want to look at somebody's GPS coordinates and figure out where they are and run queries in a database. We've not had those in EF or .NET Core, and so those are both there. We have a feature in EF where you can actually point it at an existing database. It will make you a model. Now it has the ability to actually take views in that database and expose them in the model for you as well. So those are some pretty awesome features in EF Core. ASP.NET Core, we've updated all our templates with the latest versions of web frameworks, whether it's Bootstrap or Angular. Web API is one of my favorites. One of the common things that I do